Okay. Does everybody see my PowerPoint? Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Leah. Sometimes I hesitate whether to put a PhD at the end because I usually don't like to, but my boss at Plenary Imagine is always like, well, whenever you present and represent us, you have to put it there. So that's the reason, because I don't want to feel old. But anyways, today I want to talk about the project I'm working with Plenary Imagine, and I think even at the Portland chapter, maybe we're not really the goal is not to mobilize in the music space, right? Like it's to mobilize everybody. So in a way, there is um some things that we can all learn from each other. And that's also part of the reason why 2 years ago I joined this project and started working on this, because as Helena mentioned, when I lived in Dallas, Texas and Houston, like Texas is such a hostile environment for climate in general. Um, and hostile doesn't mean that there's nothing really to push, but there's so many people who care about climate change, right? And especially in the city, like that's that's one of the first thing I want to debunk. Like people in the South don't care about climate. That's absolutely not true. Like actually in the city, people care so much. Like there's this, I think across the entire world and in the US, the divide is between urban and rural, at least from my perspective. But then what I found quite hostile is that a lot of people believe it's happening. They want to do something, but they simply don't believe there is any way for them to make a difference. So for me, when I joined this project, I thought this is such a great idea because in a way that, if you think about our lives, our daily lives right now, right? Like what are some of the situations that we voluntarily come together to do something together? Very few. Right? Like we kind of like sitting at home watching Netflix or read our own book. And even when we like go to a coffee shop, we're like, okay, please don't disturb me. But like concerts or live entertainment, in a way, Helena also mentioned there's a show going on in Portland. Live entertainment is one of the places that people are like, oh, we're so excited to do something with other people. It's very different from just like playing Spotify or playing Amazon Music on your laptop. Like, right? Like when you go to a concert, there is a certain type of energy that 20,000 people show up and they bring together, right? So this is really the energy that we're trying to harness and amplify. So our project is called Amplify, building a fan-based climate movement. And let me see if I can move on. And there we go. So here's just a picture of me with Al Gore 2 years ago. But like I would say, I brought this picture up just because it's not that, oh, this is the reward of organizing or something. I believe the reason I was there was because there are people that were standing on like their shoulders, right? And then so literally when I was on the stage, Vice President Gore asked, well, how do we talk to people? How do we mobilize people? How do we make sure people are interested? Like, what are some of their experience? And I think that's really the most important thing. It's not about uh, science or showing people data or showing a lot of image of fires. It's really about when we talk to people, when we see people, do we really see them? And do we really understand what they care about? And this is also what the project really has taught me so far, that when people care about something, how do we get the message into their heart? So here's a picture of concerts, right? I want you to like think about, what do you see in this picture? Of course, we have 12 people. We cannot like open everybody to talk about, but maybe afterwards, right? But what do you see in this picture, right? Think about it. And I think for me, it's like, okay, you got the lights, you got a really cool outdoor space, and you got so many people who voluntarily be there, like maybe having a glass of beer, or a cup of beer. But there is excitement, there is energy, and there's joy. And That's what we want to harness, and that's also what we found last year when we brought this to fans during concerts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is where we started, right? And just to let you guys know, I don't play any music. I cannot sing. My mom actually is a Chinese opera singer, but I did not have any of that. But so when I joined the project, I was like, what actually could I bring? And this is actually what you all can bring as well, because you're in the chapter, you know how to talk to people or are learning, which is great. Like that's our superpower. And that was my superpower when they hired me to do this. And then so in our project, there are two gaps that I think we really want to solve in the climate movement. The first gap is that you all probably know more than 70% of Americans care about climate change, right? Poll after poll, year after year, it doesn't matter who does the poll. It's usually the Yale Climate Communication Center. Consistently, 65 to 72% of people care about climate change, regardless of their party affiliation, where they live, and all of that. It's the majority, right? So that's the first thing that I want you to think about. But the second thing, how many of these 72% of people are actually doing something? Very little. So that's the first gap, right? The first gap is that how do we move people from actually knowing this to actually taking action? And there is a huge gap there. So that's the first gap that we're trying to solve. The second gap is actually related to that 72%. Like the majority of the people in the world actually care about climate change, but we all thought that people don't care about climate change. Like there are studies about this, and I think the major one was like 2 years ago or last year from Nature, and it says that the majority, 90% of the people who care about climate change thought people around them don't care about climate change, which is the most mind-blowing thing to me. Because if that's what we believe in, then we're not going to even try to talk to people about, hey, here's something that you can do, right? Here's a group that we can all join together. So that's really the second gap, right? Like the first gap is from knowledge to action. The second gap is that, well, from misunderstanding to actually understanding that most of us want to do something. And then this is what the music space can really come into play, because when we go to a Taylor Swift concert, right? I'm not a fan, but you know, she's the biggest name, right? When we go there, we're like, oh, we see you like Taylor Swift, and you know the same lyrics as I do. So in a way, there's some kind of bounding agent between that, right? And then so in a way, it's like, I didn't know a lot of people like Taylor Swift, which is quite impossible, I know. But like, if you take a smaller artist, right? If you take a smaller artist and you sit at home and you listen to music and you're like, okay, do people really like this person that I also like? Well, but when you go to a concert, you don't need any affirmation of that because you actually see it, right? And then so that's what we want people to do at a concert as well. Like if we present people opportunity to do something for the climate, and you saw people going to the table and do something, you're like, okay, I don't need any proof anymore because people are actually doing something about climate as well, and something that I'm doing. So I want to talk about our research or the project, how we build the cases for this. And eventually last year we brought this with the artist or the band AJR in their tour. So we have three phases. The first one is really, we did two online surveys in the summer of 2023 with Ticketmaster and another organization called Reverb. Reverb, everybody knows Ticketmaster, I assume. Okay, right. And River is an organization. They have been working with music artists to green their tours. So a lot of their initiative is like, okay, can we put 10 more recycling bins in their venue, and making sure venues don't use plastics, right? So depending on the artist, they have different plans to cater to the artist's desire. So some of the biggest artists that they've worked with would be like Coldplay and Billie Eilish, but a lot of their efforts is just simply on the sustainability side. They do sometimes do like engagement side, like having the Common Reality Project at one of the tables and having people to take actions with them. So we partner with them, and then we reach like 2,000 fans in our survey responses to really understand, okay, so for example, if your favorite artist asks you to do something about climate change, how likely are you going to do it? Or can you tell us your favorite artist and what do you know that they're doing, right? So that's our survey. And then once we have that survey data, we move into kind of like a validating phase. I call it a validating phase because the first phase is like a quantitative data collection, right? It's a survey. The second phase is a qualitative. Basically, we go to concerts, right? We went to three different concerts, and then we set up tables and talk to fans about similar questions, but we also ask them a little bit differently. So, what do you think about Taylor Swift doing this? Or if today we present a EV charging station petition, are you going to sign it, right? And really getting to know what fans are thinking, not just through the survey, like yes, no, ranking, but asking them to tell us their story. So kind of like validating what we found in the survey, but getting a little bit more information. And then once we have that, last year we have released several reports about the first two phase. And then the third phase basically is that, okay, one second, there's something popped up on my screen. Okay, the third phase is basically taking all the information. Now let's find an artist. Let's actually try to do it during their tour. And we actually did that 21 cities and 25 shows from June to August with AJR. And then so the result is really, really easy to understand. What are fans actually thinking? Well, here's the good news. Fans care about climate change as much as Americans, sometimes even more, right? 72% of Ticketmaster's respondents say climate change is at least somewhat important to them, right? And if you look at the green bars, right? A lot of times we focus on the red bars on the screen. If you look at the green bars are majority already. You don't even need to look at the yellow bars, right? So that's one of the things, if there's something that you can take away today, is that the majority of the people, whether they go to a concert to just enjoy themselves or grab a beer or watch the Portland Trail Blazers, doesn't matter where they come from. They care about climate change. That's 72%, right? And then this is actually higher than the average percentage of Americans who care about climate change from the past 5 years. So music fans may be more likely to care about climate change than the general public. And this creates opportunity for us to say that, well, if we want to create some kind of ripple of climate movements, this is the place to start because they're progressive, they care about things already, and they actually recognize that they want to do something, right? Like it's not that this is an issue, I don't want to do something. And one of the things that we also tested in the first two surveys was that, well, how would you look at artists who actually try to get you to do something? And the good news is that 40% of the fans actually says that artists who speak out about climate change and include some sort of climate action may be seen as more inspiring, right? And so that is a good news. And that's like the data points that we always take to different artists and ask them to join us, because if they want to be seen more inspiring, more authentic, then this is a thing they should be doing. So that's a really good news. One of the things we also ask would be was when an artist lead by example, meaning that if they film themselves calling the Congress about the Inflation Reduction Act, for example, or if they film themselves going to meet with their city council members, or if even they've just post on social media, how likely are fans going to actually follow their action? And the percentage is not very high, but if you think about all the bars on the right hand side, all of these things are something that we consider more impactful, right? So contacting elected officials, actually volunteer, sharing on social media, donate, protest. These actions actually involve more social and civic engagement. And then these are the actions that actually we see a lot of increase in fans' likelihood when they see artists lead by example, compared to, oh, I'm just asking you to do this, but I'm not showing you I'm actually doing this. Does that make sense? So like, this is where we see that, hey, if we really want to motivate fans to actually do something that matters, well, the artists have to find something to, well, some kind of way to actually demonstrate that they also care about this, which is actually not a hard thing to do, because in a way, if an artist or a music person try to get their fans to do something, usually these people are artists. When they do something, it's somewhat authentic, right? Like, hopefully we're not supporting people who are not authentic and just do something for fame and power, right? But my experience is that we have talked to some artist managing team and label companies, and a lot of them, they want to do authentic action. Their main sticky point is that, what about backlash? Right? What about backlash? But this is where I take that, we always take that data points that the backlash is like 10%, maybe 15, because most of the people care about climate change. You might have people who care about it and walk by your table or just simply look at the screen and don't do something, but they're not going to come back to you and say that, why did you include this in your show? I'm not going to do it, right? So that's like a very little 10 to 12%. And do the 10 to 12% really worth our time to try to change our strategy? I would say no. Like, personally, I would say no. So to maximize impact, artists should really be authentic and lead by example, and do not be afraid, not being afraid to actually show that they care about this. And what did fans actually do? This brings us to the third phase, which we bring the whole project and to AJR's tour. AJR, if you don't know who they are, it's completely fine. They are a Gen Z. Most of their fans are like teenagers, but they do a lot of their songs are pretty I want to use the word progressive, but I also don't know if that's the politically correct word anymore. But they talk about sometimes gun violence. They talk about some of the issues that young people face every single day. And then so we work with them to talk about that, or to bring this into action. And so when we did this, we did the civic action that I've been talking about. So basically, AJR, the band, recorded a video to put it on screen, and then say that, hey, this is what we have been doing. One of the brothers in AJR's, he actually is a UN climate advocate. So he has been going to DC and Congress and lobbying different, representative and senators from both sides. And then so we made a video of that, and at the end, the band was calling fans to join us and help us to do this. And then we show a QR code in different cities. Like, so for different cities, it will be a different action that's relevant to the city. And we work with different partners there. And then, so throughout the entire show, we generated like 12,000, well, 1,200, 12,000, yes, 12,000 actions. This includes signing petition, contacting elected official. We actually have fans to be on site, call this number, and call your representative to leave a message. So things like what we do sometimes, right? Every single day. We also have the sustainability action, which is, basically like reducing plastic use and recycling and taking public transit. And there's a way for us to calculate that. But I would say that's not our focus. We are only doing that so we show fans that, hey, we're also doing this to make sure the effort is holistic, right? But I know this doesn't really change how we think about climate policy. In a way, climate policy is really changed by people lobbying, talking to their representative, talking to people. So talking to people is considered the third category here, which is learn more actions, scanning QR codes, and sign up for further engagement with the Climate Reality Project or Sunrise Movement in Phoenix and other organizations. In total, we have well, fans have generated like 35,000 action within a month and a half, 6 weeks. And so this is our first pilot, and it's quite encouraging because some of the actions that we advocated for in some of the cities actually succeeded. during the summer. And I mean, of course, I cannot claim that, oh, this is because of Planet Reimagine and our project, right? But in a way, it shows that these are some of the things that people are on board. Right. So in Wisconsin, question 1 and 2 failed because the Republican proposed this. They don't want Tony Evers to actually use IRA's money to address climate change. And people know, no, voted out. In Washington, this is probably something that you know. Ballot Measure 2117, we participated heavily on designing the messaging with the campaign, and people were it was rejected by voters as well. In California, there's like $10 billion for climate resiliency project, and we also included some of other issues like abortion rights in some of the city, not all of the city. It depends on our partnership. So in all these 4 states, the constitutional amendments also were passed by the voters. And then so to us, it's a really exciting opportunity and context to engage people and to help other people see that I'm not the only one who actually cares. So come back to that 2 gaps, right? People know about this. How do we get them to take action? Well, how about when they come here to enjoy concerts, we're showing them that right here, it takes 5 minutes for you to take actions, and you can gather your friends and families to actually do it. That's the first gap. The second gap is just basically like when you come to a concert, I love AJR, you love AJR, we sing the same song, we share that energy, but you also share the care and the love for the planet and for your own community, right? And then so that's our effort to bridge that the second gap. And really, what do people think? After the concerts and the tour, we also did like a post-tour survey with fans. I would say the majority of them really feel empowered, and I was the one sorting through all these manually sorting through all the answers. It's really quite empowering because fans would write like 3 paragraphs showing us that I thought I was the only one that cares. But then when you see your friends and other people care about this, it actually helped me believe that I can make a difference, right? And then a lot of fans also said that artists should really absolutely use your influence. There are a lot of fans who actually wrote in our survey that if people don't care, they don't care, but they're not going to take the energy to actually come back to you and say that you shouldn't do it, right? So again, coming back to that backlash worries, it's really not that much. In 25 shows, we have two people coming to our table and says that, oh, I don't think you should be doing this. But comparing to that 35,000 action that we have generated, it's really less than 0.1%. Other things that's a little bit more relevant in the music space or any live entertainment space is that providing people with incentives for taking action really can attract their attention. That's the first step. But once they know that this is good for their community, this is good for their future, we have fans who's like, I don't even need to enter my name into the raffle because I've done something really great already, and I'm just gonna walk in and listen to music, right? And providing different variety of action. And I think this is what I learned from my chapter experience, and a lot of the organization and campaigning can actually also learn from, is that understanding people don't always have the same idea of what taking action means, right? Providing different opportunities and variety of actions will actually allow fans to participate in the way that they feel comfortable. So these are some of the things that I think it's quite relevant in how we organize, and also quite relevant in how I learn about um, especially right now, moving forward without losing sight, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna stop there. I realize I already used like 22 minutes. Sorry.
You're great. This is wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And do you have time, Leah, to take
Yeah,
questions?
I do. And sorry, I'm just scrambling a little bit because my laptop is like, you better try plug in. So I'm gonna plug in, but I am here.
Okay. So Leah, you're getting a lot of thanks in the chat.
Oh, okay, let me see. Hold on. Okay, let me minimize this. Sorry, because my laptop today decided to quit. It just completely locked me out, so I'm using my husband's laptop. So it's a little bit unfamiliar to me. One second. Oh, right here. Okay,
Or
let
if
me
you
see.
want to stop share, if you,
Yeah, sure.
it's a beautiful photo.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, oh, thank you, everybody. Yes, so some of the things that we also we're looking into right now, there are two areas. The first area, because some of you mentioned the film industry, which is we also look into the film industry, and I think UCLA has a center that specifically focused on um how entertainment interact with the issue of climate change. So that's some of the things that we have looked into. But right now we are two things. The first one is to start the process of looking into how to bring this into other live entertainment space. So we're thinking about sports, and sports is quite a tricky part in my opinion because it involves so many different people in a way. Concerts and music, if the artist said yes, right? The artist literally is the boss of the tour. So if the artist says yes, you have a high chance of actually having this done. Of course, you have the label companies and stuff like that behind them, that may have a little bit more say, but sports is just so complex because the athletes are actually the laborers, if you think about it. And you have the owners, you have the coaches, you have the sponsors, you have the broadcasting. So that's gonna take us some time, but we're kicking off that process and the research to just like landscape exactly what's involved in a sports event. The second part is still on the music side, but we're doing genre specific um information gathering or study, using the word study. So we picked out 3 or 4 different genres right now. I cannot share a lot of details right now, but basically we're trying to get 3 to 4 different artists of different genres and do surveys, similar stuff like this, but then actually go to their concert and test out what kind of messaging, what kind of issues actually relate to country music fans versus hip hop fans, right? Because these are very different demographics and very different populations. So those are the two things that we're currently working on.
That's awesome. Stephen has a question.
Yes, I just wondered, how are you funded? How is this work being supported?
That's a great question. I'm gonna plug it in. If you want to donate to us, you can go donate to us. But no, so Plenary Imagine I think primarily and was has been funded by the Bloomberg Foundation,
Hmm.
but our project started since you asked. So in 2023, when I first joined, I was a research and communication fellow. So we operated on a fellowship program or model. So the fellowship supposedly to just be like 1 year, but then our co-founders eventually decided that this is too big of a project to really give it up. So after 1 year, they use some of that our own groups funds to actually continue that. So right now we're actually in the fundraising phase.
Got it.
Yeah, we're in that fundraising phase. But yeah, our Plenary Imagine mostly has been founded by Bloomberg, but we also got some funding from Google, from different places for other projects, but the entire organization mostly operates on fellowship, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, no one else is going to jump in there with another question. Oh, sorry.
Dr.
No,
CC,
go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was curious about the genres. What's the timeline on that? When will you have results from different genres and so forth?
Probably somewhere, sometime this year. We
Oh.
are working with a really big organization right now on climate. Well, like a really big national climate organization to decide funding. But then after we have that, or once that's confirmed, I'm basically doing right now the prep work, right? Just going through all the artists that's on tour and going through, some of them have joined Global Citizen, for example. So see their connection to different issues and different organization basically, and to identify, doing power mapping basically, to identify who would be a big good fit, and what are some of the city that are worth going to. But we're thinking a lot of purple cities, just like not preaching to our own choirs, because the choirs do not need to be preached, right? But like understanding what kind of framework can actually get people to fill the two gaps. So sometime this year.
Chrissy, I think was about to say something.
I was just going to make a comment. The specific questions you all have asked is really helpful, but I'm just thinking also my brain has got things firing all over the place, related to that collective energy. I'm an RN, long time, 40 years. But I'm also an energy medicine practitioner. And there's just something really amazing about that. And it just makes me think, what else, since that's happening already in terms of that collective energy, might we be able to, put the plug in? So I don't know. I'm gonna dwell on that a bit. Thank you so much. That was so informing. I was really excited to hear it, and it was better than I could have imagined. So thank you, Leah.
No, thank you. Thank you all so much. And again, as I mentioned, I think we're being very specific about just the music space, right? But I think we're all part of Climate Reality Project. I think when they first have me to start this project with another fellow, is just basically the two of us, is exactly of the experience working locally, having organizing experience, because that's how we understand what people really care about. That's how we understand when a group of people come together, what kind of energy, what kind of collective idea forming process can actually be. And then so yeah.
And when I think about that, there's so many groups that I've been involved with over time and currently that, we do earth meditations that are so beautiful and so precious, where we like literally imagine holding the earth in our hands. And we don't, not that at a concert you want people to kumbaya together, but I think that there's just an opportunity for something maybe there that just hasn't been done. So I will think about it. Or if anybody has ideas, let me know.
Mm.
But I'm connected to many, many practitioners of different kinds.
Looks like Randy posted something interesting.
Randy, do you want to say something about that? Looks like Screen Actors Guild.
Well, I really don't have a lot to say about it. It's somewhat of a new, I think, for climate activists in a lot of the Northwest. It's somewhat of a new approach, and like, yeah, you definitely hit it on the head. These are organizations that have far-reaching implications to word spread. And a single endorsement from one Oscar-winning, member can elevate an issue in a heartbeat. And so I'm very interested in your work, Leah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think I could show the QR code again, but my first slide, the QR code literally is leading to our project site. And Plenary Imagine actually is a we think about ourselves as a think tank, but also a nonprofit. But you know how think tanks are. We write a lot of reports, or so there are a lot of information on Planetary Imagine's website. So if you want to understand a little bit more, I'm always here to answer some questions. You can send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat in just a second. But yes, I will put that in my chat right here in the chat, not my chat. Then I reimagine. Perfect.
My brain is thinking sort of on some of the lines of, when you mentioned incentives, there's so many simple ways that with technology, we could reach a lot of people and maybe offer a session. There's a great series of movements. They literally only take 5 minutes to do that address 9 different energy systems. And I stuff that I've seen and that have happened just with my hands blow my mind. I stopped asking, like, how does that happen? I don't care. I don't care. It's free. It's just your hands. I teach people how to do it all the time. And it's life-changing for them. And it was life-changing for me with a particular situation. And so, like, maybe even an incentive, a freebie session to learn how to do this little thing, and it could just spark that and more community, and how that contributes our well-being, contributes our ability to give more, to bring down our stress. If we're maxed out and we're having overload of cortisol, and our ability, our bodies are filled with all this cortisol, then our frontal cortex isn't working the way it can, because those vessels we're on, fight, flee, all this kind of stuff, freeze. And so if we can bring that down with whatever works for you, and ideally out of the pharmaceutical industry, but there's a place for some of it. But people being on drugs the rest of their life because these big pharma is making a gazillion bucks, when people start learning these other things, they're just blown away. So if you can bring it's a caveat, but if we can bring people and help them tune into their bodies and bring down their stress, maybe they have some bandwidth to be more engaged and going, wow, look what's happening to my planet. So sort of like a mind map of it. And you take an arm and you go, oh, there's this part over here. Maybe somebody may have interest in that. So just a thought. I may reach out to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful. I'm a Pilates teacher and a dancer, and a fellow Pilates teacher, her tagline for her business was "Health is the new wealth." And I think that that's a really interesting, it's a really interesting reminder. Often when we think incentives in this culture, it's monetary, but there are so many incentives that are social or health or just relaxation, which is amazing. And I just wanted to bring this back, Leah, to what you said about sort of the 2 questions. Do people have the knowledge? And then do they believe they're like cool? Like, do they believe they're like kind of like they're not going to go out and be like shut down by their peers, right? That they're in a good group that's going to welcome this action. And I just think that's such a beautiful reminder that we're like social beings, and you have to feel comfortable socially. And like if you're in a situation where you feel comfortable socially, you might do something that might be hard for you in another situation. So thank you for bringing this and bringing all of the like details about how this worked for you in the first year, and like the like sort of like things that you're working on next.
Yeah, absolutely. I put my email in the chat. So if you all have any other questions, or feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so engaging and succinct. That was so amazing. Thank you for your expertise and all of your energies that you're pouring into it. What an impact. Like you're like that pebble in the water, and the vibration has gone out. And if we can change the vibration on this planet collectively, we can do that together, right? And this is part of that vibration. So if we start embracing even these bigger concepts, into this stuff. Like, it's so beautiful and it's powerful and it's energizing. So I feel inspired. And I needed to be inspired after some of the goobers that have been going on and this long, long, long strike, at all the Prov hospitals. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to make sure that anybody else who has a question gets a chance to ask if Leah has another moment, because I know you're super busy. And then I thought we could each go around and just say one word that we thought from like that came to us while Leah was talking as a little hopefully gift to Leah. Any last minute questions?
Namaste.
Community.
Progress.
Re-energized.
Inspiration.
Companionship.
Message.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Message.
Mine is PP. It's 2 words. Peace pillar.
Community.
I just want to hug y'all. Sorry, Lynn. I just want to hug you.
Mine was community too, because we felt so, well, I have felt so isolated and broken apart since the election and struggling for where to find a new foothold. So this was just helpful to remember the energy of crowds and all that the powerfulness of coming together around a singular purpose. So thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for pulling us together.
Yeah.
I remember when Leah, you first moved to Portland and how inspired I have been ever since, every time I connect with you. And it's just a gift. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, no, I feel kind of bad because I was not able to like participate it consistently, but I also understand there's like stages of things, right? And the chapter has stages too. Every chapter have different stages too, but yeah, no, thank you all so much. This is quite encouraging. I just want to say one thing about what Lynn said, because I mean, after the election, I tried to stay away from social media, but as a millennial, it's really hard. And so one of the things that kept coming back on social media feed is that, well, now the best thing that we can do after the election is to bring a jar of cookie to your neighbors. And it's about communities, right? And so that's exactly, well, I didn't bring a jar of cookies, but I went to my neighbors and 2 neighbors and knock on their doors and get to know their names and talk about their gardens. And I really think a lot of the times, and especially me now working in a think tank located in New York, right? It's like, okay, we're doing these big national projects about policies, but it's still essentially coming down to what matters locally. And what matters is everybody like you guys showing up every day. Sometimes me, going to, I saw Karen last year in Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson's book signing, and then like those places where people come locally, gather together, talk about things. Even sometimes it's not positive. That to me is the essence of doing this, but it's not always glorious like what I look like today. A lot of times it's just like working in front of a laptop for 9 hours and so thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. It was wonderful. Really,
And
really.
perhaps maybe this is one of the gifts of these wobbly, weird times that communities, there's always a gift, even in the craziest situations. And perhaps the gift is, you know, going from first gear to second, maybe even third in coming months of building community with, like you said, the people that are right next door to you.
Yeah.
Like that is mind blowing for me. I love that.
Good night.
Good night. I'm gonna ask one more question. I did not stop the recording. Does anybody mind if I keep the Q&A on the recording? Okay. All good to keep the Q&A on the recording, then I will, because I think it was very fruitful and got more information yet. So thank you, Leah, for being here. Thank you, all of you, for coming and like adding to this wonderful like community.
Exactly. Thank you, Helena.